Hi, and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. The fun fold card that I'm sharing with you today has a fun telescope opening on the inside of the card. The Peekaboo Shutter card is lots of fun to create. I'm going to walk you through the steps so it's easy for you to put together at home. I'm going to be sharing two cards with you. One I'll be demonstrating, and the other one is an alternative to this exact same fun fold. You'll find the pictures, cutting dimensions, and supplies down in a link in the video description below. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I would love to have you subscribe. Click the subscribe button down below and next to it, that bell icon. When you click that, you'll get notifications when I'm live right here on YouTube, as well as when I share a new video. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started on today's project. I'm going to be using my Stampin' Trimmer with both the scoring and the cutting blade. I love the trimmer since you can keep both blades on the track at the same time. They navigate up and down out of the way. Love the clear guide so you can see the measurements as well. We're starting with a piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock. This measures 5.5 by 8.5. And the very first score line is going to be at 2 1/8 inch. There's a nice straight ledge here at the top, which will make sure that you've got it nice and straight. And then once you're happy with your alignment, go ahead and score with the light blade. I'm going to push that off to the side for just a second. This is going to have a gate fold, and the easiest way is to go ahead and fold on this score line. I'm going to be using my bone folder to reinforce those score lines as well. The other end is going to come in and meet it. I found that by scoring both of them, if I was off just a little bit, they didn't meet well here in the center. So that's just a good tip for you. This is going to be the base of the card. Next, we have two pieces of Pear Pizzazz cardstock. These measure 3.5 by 4 inches. On the 3.5 inch side, we are going to score at the 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to use this side of the trimmer this time, so I have a little bit more to hold on to. I'll line it up on the 1/2 inch mark and I'll score. And I'm going to do the same thing now on the other piece, lining this one up as well and scoring. We're going to be creating two independent panels that will make the shutter mechanism. We're going to do the exact same thing on both of these. This is the 3.5 inch mark going this way, and we need to determine the halfway point, which would be 1 3/4 inch. So I'm going to line this up here at the ledge at 1 3/4. I've navigated that scoring blade up and out of the way, and I'm going to use my pencil right inside the track here, and I'm going to make a pencil mark. I'll open up the trimmer and I'll rotate the cardstock now. So this is the 4 inch mark, and halfway is 2 inches. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on this one. With the score line here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and bend it so you can see it a little bit better. What we're going to do is we're going to create a V from the center of this pencil line, which is the halfway point, to the outside edges on both sides. You can use your scissors, but I prefer to use my trimming blade because I find that it's actually going to be a lot straighter. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to navigate the tip of this cardstock here inside this black strip. This is where it's going to cut. And then I'm also going to pivot the top half of this so that that intersection, that cross, is going to fall right between the clear strips here. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'll bring up my dark blade and I'm going to cut right up to the center. Hold on to the cardstock, lift the blade, and you can see whether or not you're aligned. And then we're going to do the exact same thing now on this side. So we're going to align it here at the top, pivoting this so it's inside the track. I'll bring my blade up here to the top, and then we'll cut. That's going to leave us this. Now we're going to actually flip it over and use this side, or you can erase the pencil mark. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing now on this piece. My next step is going to be to adhere some designer series paper. This comes from the Ornate Garden designer paper, double-sided like almost all the Stampin' Up! Papers, beautiful gold accents on one side. I'm going to use my pattern side up. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm using my Stampin' Seal Plus, and I'm going to add adhesive to the back side. To make it easier for my hand, I'm going to open this up here on my silicone craft sheet. And I'm looking to leave a margin around that designer series paper as equal as possible, and then we'll tack that in place. We're going to do the exact same thing now with this piece, placing it on the other panel to the front of this card. Once it's together, it's going to look like this. This piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock measures 3 by 5.5 inches. I did cut a coordinating piece of designer series paper that I'm going to layer on top, and again, I'll use my adhesive. You're going to want to cover this a little bit more generously because we are going to die cut an opening in this. I'm going to hold this horizontally to make it a little bit easier for my hand, and then we'll tack that in place. I've chosen one of the circle dies from the Layering Circles dies. Love the cascading sizes. I've pulled out another one as well. And you also receive the scallop circles Great for layering. This measures about 2 5/8 inch in diameter. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to center this in the middle of this panel, and then you're going to die cut the opening. That has left us this, and this is where the shutter mechanism is going to come behind. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to die cut a circle that's slightly larger. And from that same die set, I pulled out this one. This is roughly 2 3/4 inch. You want this circle that's going to go behind this opening to be slightly larger so that you can manipulate it to get proper alignment. I'm going to set this aside for right now, and I'm going to ready this panel. Let's flip this over, and we are going to add one dimensional in each of the 4 corners. You are not going to remove the dimensionals from the top. I found that this is the easiest way to get the mechanism behind here by only anchoring the bottom. I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool with the paper piercing tool attachment to help me remove those bottom dimensionals. We've got our card base here, and let's go ahead and open this up. I'd like to open it as flat as possible, and you're looking to align this just center between those 2 score lines. And again, because I've only got dimensionals exposed on the bottom, I'm going to look primarily at the bottom center and then tack that in place. Remember, the top is still unattached. Remember our 2 shutter pieces? Well, these are the pieces that we're going to have to reinforce those score lines. So this is that 1/2 inch score line that we originally created. My pencil marks are on the back side. I chose not to even bother erasing those. I wanted to reinforce the score lines even though I'm going to open these up. 2 reasons. I want them to be visible, and the second reason is I want to work with this flat. There's going to be 1 panel for each side of the inside of the card. Let's start with the right one. The silicone craft sheet is going to assure that I don't get any adhesive on my work surface. Adhesive, liquid glue, and hot glue will not stick to it, which is going to keep this nice and sticky free. Remember here our card, this is the opening at the top. I am going to turn this, here is the opening, because I'm going to work right along this crease. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to slide it right behind there, leaving the sticky part exposed to the top. And what I'm looking to do is align this the best that I can from side to side. And you're going to align this edge just at that score line. Once you're happy with the placement, all you have to do is close that panel, and that sticky edge is going to attach itself here. Now we're going to turn it, and we're going to go to this other side, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to add adhesive here. And here's the edge. We're going to tuck this behind or in front of this other panel. And then we're going to do the exact same thing looking to center this. Now, very important, down here, you're going to want to make sure that it's not crooked because you want these panels to be lined up. So I'm looking to make sure that I have these as even as I possibly can. I'm also looking to see that they're not sticking out here at the bottom. Once I'm happy with this, I'm going to go ahead and press and seal that edge as well. And you can see this is the mechanism. This now is the top. So we're going to flip this around, but we are not going to adhere this just yet because we're going to insert our greeting. I'm going to protect my work surface with a small piece of grid paper. Here is that larger circle that we die cut. I'm choosing to use Memento Black ink pad for my greeting because it's a small script greeting and I want to make sure it's predominant through that telescope opening. I'm going to go ahead and ink this up, and this is going to get stamped right here in the center. I thought it was a little bit plain, so I'm going to add a little bit of a background using a coordinating ink to the Designer Series paper. This is Terracotta Tile. The one thing I love about Stampin' Up! Products is the color coordination. This floral image is coming from the Ornate Style stamp set. You'll see there's lots of pretty floral images in here. Now you may look at it and think you have to color it in, and we are not going to color it at all today. So consider using colored ink to correspond with your designer papers. I'm going to go ahead and ink this up, and I know this is a very strong pigmented color, so I'm going to stamp off once, twice on my scratch paper, and then I'm going to gravitate those flowers here, and I'll do that same thing one more time, and then I'm going to turn this and stamp more flowers here on this side. Now that our greeting is finished, let's go ahead and flip that over. We're going to use that Stampin' Seal Plus again, and we're going to line it on the back side. I've got the sticky part here to my finger to help me navigate it. And you're going to see here's that panel and then the 2 shutter mechanisms. We are going to slide this behind here. By it sticking to your finger, it's going to allow you to pivot and place this where you want it. Once you have the positioning just right, all you have to do is just press down on the cardstock, and that circle now has stuck to the back side. Now we're ready to take off the dimensionals here. And then all we have to do is just tack that in place. So you can see here how this opens and closes for that really fun shutter peekaboo opening. Now let's decorate the outside. Once again, I'm going to protect my work surface, and I've mounted that very large floral image from that exact same stamp set. Just because it's large doesn't mean you can't use it. You don't have to use the whole thing. But because it's sizable, I'm going to leave it face up on my work surface, and I'm going to take that same color terracotta tile, and I'm going to ink it this way. Now I know I don't have to ink the whole thing because obviously this is a lot smaller than what I'm going to need. And just like before, I know this is going to be too strong. So I'm going to stamp it off once and again twice to reduce that coverage. This now is going to get stamped here on that small square of Whisper White cardstock. That piece measures 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. Now the greeting I used on the inside, I'm also going to use a greeting from that same stamp set for the outside. And that stamp set is called Ornate Thanks, and you're going to see how they work really beautifully together. These large greetings can be coupled with these other small scripts to create a custom phrase. But because I want a little bit of visual interest, I am actually going to place this on the diagonal. And one of the reasons I love the grid paper is because of those grid lines, because I can't do too many things straight. So I'm going to align the top point here and the bottom point here. And this time I'm going to use basic gray ink. I don't want the black to be too overpowering to the front of my card, but I still want it to show up. So I've mounted the words "So Grateful." So we'll go ahead and we'll ink those up. And those are going to get stamped here. That subtle background really allows that greeting to stand out. And just like we've done before, I'm going to add a layer to this so that it'll be a little bit sturdier on the front of this card. And here's another piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock. This measures 2 7/8 by 2 7/8. I opted to keep this very, very narrow, not to take away from the designer series paper. Now it's a matter of just adding it to the card front. And I've done this before. Make sure your card's going in the right direction before you start. And I'm going to do this on the diagonal. But obviously this panel needs to open. So you're only going to place dimensionals on this left side. So let me give you a couple tips. We're going to start with the first one right behind the word "so," and then we're going to take 2 others and we're going to cascade those in a very small triangle here. Then we'll remove those paper backings, looking to keep the top and the bottom point aligned to that crease. I'm looking for the center of my card, and then when I'm happy with the placement, we'll just tack that down. When you open this now, you'll see that the dimensionals are not visible, which does leave a beautiful presentation for the opening of this card. Now, the last thing I decided to do was add some embellishment to this just to play up a little bit of color. The holiday rhinestone jewels are among my favorites because there's a huge myriad of colors here. And I decided to work a little bit outside the box. So I'm going to use these light greenish blue color ones that are here. I thought they picked up that green really nicely without competing with the yellow. I'm going to choose one of the larger ones here with my Take Your Pick tool attachment. They have glue dots already on the back, which makes them really easy to use. I'll place one inside that daisy here. I have a smaller one for this flower here. And then finally, I'll add one more down here. I'm trying to create a triangle formation just so it's visually interesting. Such a pretty and a very simple card to put together with the individual pieces. Now I have one other to share with you that uses an entirely different stamp set. This one uses the stamp set called Under My Umbrella. It does have a coordinating umbrella builder punch, which punched out the umbrella and the handle. I used the Stampin' Blends markers. I did just a simple panel here that's going to allow me to open this telescope. And there you can see that peekaboo shutter opening on this card as well. I would love to know which one is your favorite. Do you favor the floral, simpler look, or do you love the bold look of this Magenta Madness Designer Series paper with the Highland Heather accents? Leave me a comment below. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you are interested in receiving a copy of the current catalog, head over to lisasstampstudio.com and click on Catalogs. There you can request one. If you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up here on YouTube, which is a like. It certainly helps. And I look forward to having you join me next time. Have a great day.